Welcome, dear learners. Today I will be discussing about biopiracy. Let's get started. Biopiracy is unethical or illegal exploitation of biological resources and traditional knowledge from indigenous communities by corporations, researchers, or institutions without consent or fair compensation. It often occurs when valuable natural products, genetic materials, or traditional medicinal practices are patented for commercial benefit, disregarding the rightful ownership of local communities. This practice undermines the cultural and intellectual heritage of indigenous people while allowing external entities to profit from their centuries-old wisdom. Biopiracy highlights the urgent need for fair access, benefit sharing mechanism, and stronger legal protections to ensure equity, respect, and sustainability in biodiversity utilization. Biopiracy is defined as the exploitation of biological resources and indigenous knowledge by individuals or institutions, often multinational corporations, without offering fair compensation or recognition to the rightful owners, typically local or tribal communities. It involves taking valuable genetic materials, plant species, or traditional practices developed over generations and using them for commercial profit. This unethical appropriation disregards the contributions and rights of indigenous people. A well-known example includes patent claims on Neem, turmeric, and Basmati rice by foreign companies where traditional Indian knowledge was misused to gain exclusive rights and financial benefits without acknowledging its original custodians. Key concepts related to biopiracy include biodiversity, which refers to the immense variety of life forms on the earth that provide essential genetic resources for food, medicine, and industry. Traditional knowledge represents the deep understanding of medicinal plants, seeds, and natural processes developed and preserved by indigenous communities over centuries. A patent is a legal right granted by for an invention, but it is often misused to unjustly claim ownership over naturally occurring or community developed resources. Genetic resources include plant, animal, and microbial materials that contain functional units of heredity, offering immense scientific and commercial value when used responsibly and ethically. The mechanism of biopiracy involves several interconnected stages that led to exploitation of natural and traditional resources. It begins with the collection of plants, microorganisms, or genetic materials from biodiversity-rich regions, often without the consent of local communities. This is followed by research and development, where these materials are tested or modified in laboratories to create so-called innovative products. Next comes to the patent application, where companies or researchers file for intellectual property rights in developed countries. This led to commercial exploitation as products are marketed for profit without fair benefit sharing. Ultimately, indigenous communities face a loss of access to their own traditional resources. Several well-known examples illustrate the unethical practice of biopiracy worldwide. The neem from India was patented by US company W.R. Grace for its pesticide properties, even though it had been traditionally used in India for centuries. Similarly, the University of Mississippi obtained a patent on turmeric for its wound healing properties, long known in Ayurveda. Rice Tech in USA patented varieties of Basmati rice undermining traditional and Indian Pakistani farmers. A US citizen patented the Ayush, Ayuska plant sacred to Amazon tribe, while Pfizer and CSR commercialized Hoodia cactus used by the San people without their prior consent. Biopiracy occurs due to a combination of legal, economical, and social factors. One major cause is the lack of legal protection for traditional knowledge, leaving indigenous wisdom vulnerable to exploitation. The inadequate enforcement of biodiversity laws further allows corporations and researchers to misuse biological resources without consent. The high global demand for natural products and in pharmaceuticals, cosmetics, and agriculture fuels this unethical practice. Additionally, weak community awareness and the poor documentation of indigenous knowledge make it easy for outsiders to claim ownership. Lastly, loopholes in international patent systems, such as those in US and Europe, enable unjust patent on traditional resources. Biopiracy has far-reaching economic, social, cultural, and environmental impacts. Economically, it results in a loss of potential income for indigenous communities who are deprived of the benefits from their traditional knowledge, while corporations gain monopoly control over valuable natural resources through patents. Socially and culturally, it leads to the erosion of indigenous rights and heritage as traditional practices are commercialized without acknowledgement, causing a breakdown of trust between researchers and local communities. Environmentally, biopiracy promotes the overexploitation of certain species for profit and contributes to reduced biodiversity, threatening the ecological balance and sustainability of local ecosystems. The legal and institutional framework addressing biopiracy involves several international and national measures aimed at protecting biological resources and traditional knowledge. The Convention on Biodiversity recognizes the sovereign rights of nations over their biological resources and promotes access and benefit sharing to ensure fairness. The Nagoya Protocol of 2010 builds on Convention on Biodiversity by strengthening mechanisms for equitable benefit sharing from genetic resource use. The TRIPS agreement regulates global intellectual property rights by facing criticism for enabling biopiracy through patents on biological materials. In India, the Biological Diversity Act of 2002, the National Biodiversity Authority, and the Traditional Knowledge Digital Library collectively safeguard biodiversity and prevents misuse of indigenous knowledge. Preventing biopiracy requires a combination of legal, social, and ethical measures to protect biodiversity and indigenous knowledge. Legal protection should be strengthened by enforcing robust national laws on biodiversity and intellectual property rights. Comprehensive documentation of traditional knowledge in accessible database can help prevent wrongful patents. Community awareness programs are essential to educate indigenous groups about their rights and benefits. Effective access and benefit sharing mechanism must ensure fair profit distribution to local communities. International cooperation is needed to align global patent laws with biodiversity conservation goals, while ethical research practices demand prior information consent before using community resources. The Neem patent revocation case is a landmark example of successful resistance against biopiracy. In 1994, the European Patent Office granted a patent to US company W.R. Grace for a pesticide derived from neem tree, a plant long used in India for its natural pesticide properties. Indian NGOs and scientists include Dr. Vandanan Shiva opposed the patent, arguing that Neem's use were part of traditional Indian knowledge. After years of legal battles, the EPO revoked the patent in 2000, recognizing the prayer art. This case highlighted the strength of indigenous rights activism and collective global resistance to biopiracy. The ethical dimensions of biopiracy revolves around issues of justice, equity, and sustainability. It challenges the fairness of exploiting indigenous knowledge without recognizing or reward. Ethical responsibility demands the traditional knowledge be viewed as a collective intellectual heritage belonging to communities rather than individual or corporations. True ethical bioprospecting should emphasize consent, compensation, and collaboration, ensuring the local communities are active participants and beneficiaries in use of their resources. Upholding these principles not only protect indigenous rights but also promotes sustainable and respectable partnerships between science, industries, and traditional knowledge holders. The key terms associated with biopiracy helps clarify its ethical and legal context. Bioprospecting refers to exploration of biodiversity for potential commercial applications, ideally carried out with the consent and benefit sharing of local communities. Prior informed consent ensures the indigenous people give approval before their biological resources or knowledge are accessed for research or commercial use. Benefit sharing involves the fair and equitable distribution of profits derived from utilization of these resources, recognizing community contribution. Intellectual property rights or legal protections granted to inventors or creators through they can be misused when applied to naturally occurring or traditional knowledge. In conclusion, biopiracy underscores the ongoing conflict between commercial exploitation and ethical conservation. It exposes how indigenous knowledge and biodiversity are often misused for profit without recognition or fairness. Protecting traditional knowledge is essential not only for biodiversity conservation but also for preserving cultural integrity and ensuring equitable development. Addressing this issue requires stronger legal frameworks, enhancing global corporations, and empowerment of local communities to safeguard their heritage and rights. By promoting fairness, transparency, and sustainability, societies can prevent the exploitation of both nature and people, ensuring the benefit of biodiversity are shared justly and responsibly. Thank you for watching.